All right, hello, welcome back to Burn Pile, episode 14. Really? I've done that many? Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot. I had an interesting week. So I'm going to, at the end of this little anecdote, I'm going to go ahead and fully dox myself. So this is an exciting one. So pay attention. Pay attention, everyone. All right. So I think I've mentioned before that I'm sort of just freelancing now. I'm not working like 40 hours a week. I'm lucky enough to be in a low enough cost of living country where I have access to freelance hours that can pay for everything I need. And that's a big blessing. I've escaped the 4-HL in my kind of poor man's way. I'll never be wealthy, but I escaped the 4-HL, and so I started a new freelance job because there was one that wanted me to work. The one I was doing from October to February wanted me to do some weekend work for free, so I just let that contract expire. And then I immediately got another job that was supposed to be okay because while I was required to be in the building for a certain number of hours, the actual work was very, very low, and there were no Fridays that needed to be worked. So I had a discussion with them, and I worked there for 2 weeks, and then when it came time to sign the contract, the number of hours was way higher than what we talked about in person, and they offered me a contract that was totally different from what we talked about. So I just said no, pay me for the 2 weeks, and they said okay. And then in about 24 hours, I got some freelance work to make up for it. And the reason I'm telling this is because I think it's time to dox myself. Um, if you've listened to this podcast before, I think you know that I'm a white American guy, and I live in Asia, but I haven't talked about the country I live in or what I do. So I'm gonna all cards on the table. I'm not just some anonymous wizard cat here. Um, what I actually am is I'm a Shabbos goy for a group of wealthy Jews in Singapore. And so a Shabbos goy, like the Jews, they have like their holy day, and they're not allowed to to turn off the light if it's the Sabbath. So you have to there needs to be a Shabbos goy around, and you can tell him to turn off the light, or if there's any kind of business that needs to be done. Um, you just hire the Shabbos goy. Shabbos goy comes in. So that's what I've been doing. That's what my freelance time is, and I'm also a bit of a fixer for these guys. They're a bit of a minority in Singapore, and things happen like they get sometimes they get entangled with the locals, let's say, and you know sometimes a local boy and a Jewish girl, or a Jewish boy and a local girl, and somebody's got to come in and handle that because I mean, you and I know this, listener. I think you're a Western person. Um, if you're a Westerner, you know this, that there's the chosen people, and then there's the goy cattle, and that's what we are. But the Singaporeans, they don't really know that. They don't understand the difference. So when when a Jewish boy and a Singaporean girl get together, and the family doesn't like that, I've got to go to the Singaporean girl, and I've got to say, hey, look, you and me, you might think I'm a white person and you're a Singaporean, but that's not true. Okay? God doesn't make that distinction. Both of us are goyim. Okay? We're both goys. And we got to stay away from the chosen people here. All right? There's got to be some lines. Okay? So basically whenever there's a problem, I break things down and I put it in terms that people can understand. And that's how I make my living, and that's how I've escaped the 4-HL. I'm pretty well paid for it. It's a good gig, It's good. And I know I'm doing the right thing. By God, I'm helping the chosen. It's a pretty nice life for me that I've carved out for myself. Very happy about it. So if you were curious about my personal life, there it is. All the cards on the table. You know what it is. All right. So let's get into the stories for this week. And the first one, what else could it be? I mean, if you followed the news at all this week, what else could be the number one story for me? It's the Air India flight. Air India flight forced to return to US over clogged toilets in 10-hour debacle. That is actually what the headline is. Headline in the New York Post. So you've got these Indians on a plane. I mean, oof. First of all, just the idea of Indians being on a plane is scary enough. I mean, without getting into even what happened, just being on a flight, just the two words Air India, actually, a little bit of a chill goes down my spine. I think about that. Air India. I mean, it's there's a I don't know if you remember a Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor. He'd be on NPR and he'd come on and he had a great joke about pumpkin pie, and he said the best pumpkin pie in the world isn't really that much better than the worst pumpkin pie in the world. Meaning, all the pumpkin pies are kind of on the same level. Like, the best one ever made would be like 10% better than the worst one. Like, they're basically the same. And, obviously that's like a nice, lovely little, adorable sentiment, about Thanksgiving. But that applies in the opposite way, I think, to an Air India flight. So let's say this is the worst Air India flight that there's ever been. Is probably only marginally worse than like a perfect Air India flight. A perfect Air India flight where everything goes correctly at the end of it, you're in India. Okay, so really, how bad could it be? And in fact, this flight, the toilets were so clogged. The toilets were so clogged that it actually had to turn back. All right, I'm going to read a little bit here. So the New York Post editors thought this was fine to lead off with, "This was a crappy flight." Okay, I'm just going to pretend they didn't write that. That's okay. Passengers aboard an Air India flight to Delhi endured a 10-hour trip to nowhere when their plane was forced to circle back to Chicago because most of the toilets became clogged and inoperable. So this is actually better than a good flight. Okay, now hear me out here. Imagine waking up on an airplane, okay, and you find out it's an Air India flight and you're going to land in Delhi. You're going to start panicking. You're going to start freaking out. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be in India soon. Like, should I jump out? Should I try to take down this plane? Should I kill myself in the bathroom? And as hellish and nightmarish as the Indian shit exploding from the toilets is on this flight, in 10 hours you're going to be back in Chicago. This one's not that bad. You're not going to actually wake up in India. This is actually a pretty good. This is actually one of the better Air India flights there's ever been, because at the end of it, everybody was in Chicago. Not that bad. Actually, pretty damn good. But let's continue on here. Air India Flight 126 was making its way over Greenland. Excuse me. Was making its way over America. On March 5th, when 8 out of its 12 toilets broke down. Okay, and the post here is retarded, so they've written a sentence that makes no sense, and they've misspelled the word passengers. But for those of you just listening, I'll go ahead and read it. 8 out of its 12 toilets broke down. Passengers flushed bags and rags down the lavatories, the airline told the Post. They don't have spell check over at the New York Post. I mean, what is this? I mean, it doesn't have to be immaculate. It doesn't have to be the New York Times. It's the Post. But, I mean, come on. Nobody gives the article they type out a once over before they hit publish. I mean, the Post, aren't the Post the ones who broke the Hunter Biden laptop story? They can't run spell check. Okay. The extended PP dance began nearly 5 hours into the 14-hour trip, forcing the Boeing to head back to Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Upon landing at Chicago, all passengers and crew disembarked normally and have been provided blah 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 blah. Okay, you get it. You get the story. Oof. So they were just flushing blankets, innerwear, diapers, among other waste, down the toilets. Now, I think this is a cover story, personally. I mean, an airline, it's like, these are like publicly traded companies. They can't come out and say what actually happened. So they're like, yeah, the 8 out of the 12 toilets were clogged, because people were flushing diapers down there. People were flushing saying they can't be like 8 out of 12 were clogged because it was a plane full of Indians. I mean, it's the shit country. It's like when you think of India, the first thing you think of is shit. The streets are covered in shit. Everybody shits outside. They just shit anywhere. The whole country smells like shit. And then you put a plane full of them together, and the toilets are clogged, and you go, oh, but that they were flushing like blankets down the like. What are you talking about? Can we just be real here for a second? Like, come on. Don't they have like there's like videos. The worst thing that happened to India, if it weren't for the internet, like I would think India was like this wonderful mystical place. I have a friend who had a trip to India and he loved it. A white American guy. He had a trip to India. He absolutely loved it. I had heard like nothing but great things about India. The culture is amazing. Bollywood is really popular all over the world. Blah 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 blah. All this stuff, and then someone decided to actually go to India and give these guys like 4G and like smartphones, and they just started uploading about like what they eat and what their lives are like, and it's like, oh my god, this is uh this is hell on earth. This is crazy. You guys just you're just baking in the sun and shitting in the streets all day, and then you're like reaching into your ass and pulling shit out and then throwing it onto the street and then like walking to the food vendor, going behind the counter and preparing meals for everyone. And I can tell there's a weird thing with like you meet Indian guys in like in the US or in any first world country. Like I've met Indian guys who had like really nice jobs, nice careers. They're like the nicest people you ever met. And by the way, I want to say something really racist here, but the truth is they actually smell fine. The ones you meet in first world countries in the right context, and Canada, if you think I'm talking about you when I say first world countries, I'm not. I'm not talking about what you guys are doing over there where you're just totally replacing yourselves. You're bringing in like everyone from the subcontinent to North America to go live with you as like a stepping stone to go to America. I'm not talking about you guys. I have no concept of what you're doing, just bringing millions and millions of them in. But I'm talking about if you work like a professional job, you know, you get these real, male and female, you get these real Usha Vance types. And they're actually delightful. They're escaping. That's like just imagine like waking up and you're Indian and like you look at yourself in the mirror, you're Indian and you're in India. I mean, you would figure out any way to go get out. Even if you're like not that good at studying, you would force yourself to become great at studying and get to another country. And so they're actually very relatable. They're very cool people. Now they would never say that they hate India, but they're like, yeah, I studied 16 hours a day from the time I was 6 years old to finally get a middling corporate job in this country we're in. And it's heaven on earth, and I'm so grateful. And hey, man, it's nice to meet you. And I'm so glad to meet someone who's not Indian. And how are you doing? Can I help you with anything? It's exactly the way I would be. So you can't claim that I'm racist and I have no empathy because the first world Indians that I meet, that I love them. They're great. They're fantastic to get along with. And listeners of this podcast know how I feel about Usha Vance, for God's sakes. So it's not, you can't say I'm being racist here. I'm saying if you woke up Indian, you'd be trying to get the hell out. And I just need you to try hard enough, meaning actually become great at something. Don't go to Canada and start shitting on their streets. Unless, I mean, maybe you should. I don't. Fuck Canada. Who cares? Actually, I'm going to change that. I do want you to do that. If you're Indian, you either work really hard, become great at something, and get the genius visa, not the H-1B visa. That's horse shit. But get the genius visa. Be like a physics guy or like that Indian guy that China got who like invented 5G or whatever it is that America should have got him, but they didn't. Yeah, be one of those. Or if you just want to shit on the streets, but you want like fresh streets to shit on, I think Canada's your place. I think you can go to Canada. You go to Canada, you shit on the streets there. You give the white Canadians depression, and then what they're going to do is get a slip from their government that says they have incurable depression, and their depression is an incurable disease, and then they're going to go into the death pods. They've got government death pods there. That's what they do in that country. Sucks to suck. God, what a cringe fag thing to say. I'm a huge fag. Why did I say that? I should edit that out. I'm not going to edit that out. Sucks to suck is such a Reddit thing to say. I'm a huge fag. Disregard that. Canada, I'm sorry. Disregard. Okay, let's move on. Next thing. Oh, this was fun. This was a good one. Hasan Piker on this past weekend with Theo Von. I'm not going to watch this, but you should. I mean, I did watch it, but I'm not going to play any clips here or anything. Maybe I will. I don't know. See, the thing about Hasan Piker is he really is like a pretty midwit like middling IQ guy. Um, but that doesn't really matter. You know, he's really handsome and he's got some charisma. To me, he's kind of like Andrew Schultz in his mannerisms. Like, I'll just hold on. Let's see if we. I just went to a random place here. Let's just get to a segment of
including
him
us. Like
talking.
I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid that
No, I mean, look, I've been actively been openly pro.
I mean, look, I've been openly, like he's like an Andrew Schultz guy. He's like, he's got this fake black thing he does, and it's really, you know, it's kind of stilted. It's kind of an affectation. It's a little fake. It's kind of lame. But and of course he's a left wing guy. He calls himself a left wing guy. He doesn't have like a really great understanding of the world. Um, you know, I think I've mentioned before, like I don't mind listening to left wing people talk. I don't mind engaging with their ideas. Hasan doesn't really have ideas. He's not a very insightful person, I would say. He's just not interesting, which he doesn't have to be. He's a Twitch streamer. He's appealing to, you know, 12-year-olds, and he's telling them something exciting about, you know, communism and these leftist ideas. And you know, leftism is one of the things where if you spend like 10 minutes learning a few names, some interesting like historical facts or whatever, you can repeat them and sound like an intelligent, empathetic person, you know, instantly. It's the lowest effort shortcut to sounding intelligent. And if you're a young person watching Twitch, it's great. It's like you can watch this guy, you can be like, oh, I'll say this and my parents won't know what to say, and I'll be smarter than them. And and you know, finally I'll feel important in the world. Like that's what he's really selling to his audience. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, you know, I just mean this is why I don't take him seriously. It's because it's not because he's a leftist, but I mean, of course it is. Leftism is the gayest thing in the world. But you know, he's not Noam Chomsky, he's not Zizek. He's a Twitch streamer. You know, he's a handsome, charismatic Twitch streamer. That's what he does. And he does this kind of, you know, he moves his hands a certain way. He's like, I've been talking about some Marx, yo. Like it's I mean, obviously that's a little hyperbolic. He doesn't do that, but he does kind of like it's a little bit of a Malibu's Most Wanted kind of thing he does. And it's not for black people. It's for like a white audience. And he's very white looking. I think that he's maybe Turkish or something. I'm not sure. But the reason that I kind of do like Hasan a little bit is because when October 7th happened and the and you really couldn't in the media, like you kind of couldn't say like free Palestine anymore after October 7th happened, he kept saying it. And he actually has like that's cost him a lot, I think. And I was actually very impressed with that because I thought that he would cave instantly. I thought he was a total fraud and he would totally cave on this. Hey, wait a second. My background's all messed up. There we go. Okay, sorry if you were just listening on the podcast. My background was flipped. It was in the wrong place. I didn't want the cat to be in front of the fireplace. I wanted the fireplace to be on the other side. Okay, if you're just listening, ignore that. Um, so Hasan, he was on a podcast with Ethan from the H3 podcast, Ethan Klein. And Ethan has like Israeli citizenship. His wife is Israeli. And they have a very cringe, very gay podcast, but they would be, you know, calling themselves leftists. What they mean by that, I think, is shit libs. And of course, when the October 7th stuff happened, they were very, very much on the pro-Israel side. His wife served in the IDF, the co-host of the podcast. So he had a podcast with Hasan called Leftovers, and it's like the two of them talking about left wing issues. And Ethan he's not a midwit. He's like a genuinely like a low IQ individual, which is also fine. He's just an entertainer. But so when Hasan would say like kind of midwit things, the whole show was like Hasan saying like midwit things and like very, very, very basic facts. And Ethan like having his mind blown and like really looking up to him. And like that was the whole show. And it was good for Hasan. It like reinforces the idea that he's smart. It was good for Ethan. It gives him like more credibility as like a left wing guy or whatever. And it was good. But like now they hate each other and it's over the Israel thing. And I really didn't think that Hasan would have the balls to lose that podcast and to be so strong on the Palestinian issue. Um, and I'm actually really impressed with that. I'm not even saying that he's right. I mean, of course, I'm on Palestine's side against against Israel. Like, well, that's not even exactly true. If the US didn't send my tax dollars to either side, I don't know what side I would be on or if I would care at all. I just hate that we send billions and billions and billions of dollars to Israel all the time. And Trump is just as bad or worse with this than anyone else. But because Trump is doing everything else right, I kind of give him a pass. I kind of think he's going to get around to it once he gets us out of World War III with Ukraine, which is what he's been doing an excellent job of, and I'm very happy about. But I think he just decided my hope, and maybe this is probably major cope, but uh, I would really hope that he just realized he can't get us out of World War III in Ukraine and like turn his back on Israel. He's got to pick one, and he picked the right one, I think. But we'll see. But yeah, my obviously my employers here in Singapore, they're very pro-Israel. They've talked. I've met a lot of my clients here. Their son is with a girl who's, let's say, is not fully mature, and maybe there'd be a legal issue with the age of the girl. And I do what I can as the fixer, but the answer is they've got to take refuge in Israel, and that's where they end up going. Obviously, I'm joking, but that is a thing. I believe like Israel doesn't deport pedophiles. Like if you're a pedophile, you can just and you're Jewish, I think you can just go to Israel and they'll like take you and you get citizenship and like they won't deport you like to face justice in the US or anywhere else. Um I haven't looked into that, but I've heard that on podcasts, so I'm gonna go with it because it is really, really, really funny. And the Muslims in Pakistan, sorry, in Palestine and around the world, they never do anything weird with underage girls. So you got to be on their side. They're morally right. But anyway, it's cool to see Hasan on Theo. I think it's very healthy for podcasting to not just have JD Vance and Donald Trump and Candace Owens on and to have Hasan Piker on Theo Von. I think it's actually a really positive thing, even if Theo Von sucks, because hey, Candace Owens sucks. And all the Daily Wire guys are much, much worse than Hasan Piker. So it's a healthy thing. I hope to see people like Hasan and other people on these kind of echo chambery podcasts where they kind of just recycle the same like 20 unfunny comedians interviewing each other endlessly, and then they throw in like something more interesting once in a while. And the more interesting thing, if it's not some Daily Wire fag, if it's someone like Hasan, every once in a while, I think it's a good thing. And it does help. It does help to put things on our terms, like when Hasan has to talk to Theo, who he knows has interviewed Donald Trump before and who likes Donald Trump and who says right wing things, and he kind of has to justify his ideas to that audience. It's good for him and it's good for everybody. Okay, let's move on. next thing, more YouTube here, but we're going to change gears a little bit. YouTuber stabbed to death as she live streamed on Tokyo Street. Police in Japan said Friday that they had arrested a suspect in the fatal stabbing of a YouTuber while she was live streaming on a downtown Tokyo street. Tokyo Metropolitan Police said they had arrested Kenji Takano, 42, on the spot on suspicion of attempted murder Tuesday. He has since been sent to the prosecutors but has not been charged yet. The victim, Irie Sato, 22, was rushed to a hospital with critical injuries after the attacker stabbed her repeatedly in her upper body, police said, and was later pronounced dead. Witnesses and live stream viewers said they heard her screaming for help, and the stream suddenly went black. Have you ever watched a stream? You ever been watching a live stream of something and you thought, God, this is so boring. I wish something would happen. Have you ever thought that? You know, I don't watch a lot of live streams. I guess that's not true. I do watch some on YouTube. A lot of the time I can't catch them live, so I watch them later. And one of them, there's this fat gay guy in Baltimore, and he got famous for the Dead Mall YouTube videos, the Dead Mall series. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up. Dead Malls. This guy Dan Bell has a YouTube channel. This is Dan Bell. He is the Dead Mall series is great. It's like he's just this really fat gay guy. He's probably in his 50s now. And when the Dead Mall series first started, it's probably like 10 years ago or more. Let's see. When did it start? How many years ago? Yeah, 9 years ago. 11 years ago. Okay. Yeah, so he was in like his 40s, but he's always been like really overweight. He's from Baltimore, and he just drives all over to these dead malls. And he kind of waddles around. It's kind of funny because he's real fat. So you can tell he's waddling. He's got like his steady cam, and it's kind of just shuffling back and forth in first person because he's such a fat ass. And these aren't live streams, but he does do live streams now on his other channel where he just drives around Baltimore in the middle of the night, and he tells all his gay stories, and like sometimes he'll go into like a what do you call them? Like an adult bookstore or whatever, where they've got like a mini movie theater, and he'll conceal his camera, and he goes through the adult bookstore, and then he shows you like all the jizz stains on the walls or whatever, and it's all like in the middle of the night, and it's all like weird, and they'll just tell some anecdotes about his life, you know, and no explicit gay sex stuff, unfortunately. But you know, kind of like slightly seedy, kind of like lower middle class kind of stories about his life, and those are good to have on in the background. I like those. I listen to those streams. But you know what would kick ass is what would be entertaining for me. And I know this is selfish. I know it's selfish. And again, I like him. I like Dan Bell. But would be entertaining for me as a viewer of the stream would be if he got stabbed to death in the middle of it. If he got stabbed to death in the middle of a stream, can you imagine how exciting that would be? I mean, that's like you can't script entertainment like that. That's the whole point of live streaming, is anything could happen, right? I mean, right? Isn't that the point? Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the main story. So this guy, there's this thought who was streaming. Do people say thought anymore? I don't know. Some would say I'm out of touch. But so this guy, there's this 40-year-old guy on Thought Patrol there in Tokyo. Okay, so she's 22, he's 40. And then we have a follow-up story here from NHK, Japanese outlet here, but the story's in English. Police reveal more about money ties between murdered live streamer and suspect. Uh-oh, simp alert. Simp. He was a simp. See, that's the problem. Here's where everything went wrong. Police in Tokyo are revealing more about the murder of a woman who was live streaming on a street. They say the suspect has revealed that he provided her with as much as $670 per month via virtual tipping, even after lending her large amounts of money. Listen, if you're a 22-year-old lady and you're getting money from a 42-year-old man, you're getting a huge loan and enough money to sustain yourself each month as a stipend, you better, keep him happy. You got to keep him happy, I would say. He had lent her more than 2.5 million yen, or about $17,000, to cover rent and other expenses, and filed a civil lawsuit demanding she pay it back. Trial records show that he learned of Sato through a video streaming app, and they first met in August 2022. Police quote Takano as saying that he wanted to hurt her for failing to reimburse him and cutting off contact. Oof. Ladies, don't ghost, guys. Come on. Don't ghost. Hey, so she ghosted him, and then he ghosted her. If you know what I'm saying, right? Did you get it? Because he turned her into a ghost. He ghosted her. You're gonna ghost me, bitch? I'm gonna ghost you. Okay, so here's what I think. Here's the problem. This guy lent her $17,000. He filed a civil lawsuit to try to get the $17,000 back. I don't think he got any pussy. Because if he had paid her that much to fuck her, I don't think he'd go to a civil lawsuit to try to get it back. Right? I mean, I'm using all my powers as a Singaporean Shaboskoi fixer, and I'm saying that he wasn't getting the pussy. I think he was just simping. I think he really did lend her that $17,000, and he thought she's a good, nice girl. Maybe she likes me, and she'll pay it back for sure. She's trustworthy. I've seen her on the stream. She's trustworthy. I saw her on the stream a few times. I met her in person. She didn't come over to my apartment or anything, but I bought her coffee. I gave her $700 for the month, and I lent her $17,000 because she looked me in the eye. I see her streaming all the time. I know where she streamed. Like, she's gonna pay me back, dude. She's gonna pay me back, dude. She will pay me back. All right. She's gonna pay me back. Okay. Next one. Let's move on. Now, I've talked about my capacity for hatred on the podcast. I think I'd mentioned that last week quite a bit. How I find new levels, new peaks of hatred that I find within myself are possible. And we have Nicholas Kristof here, who's if you read the New York Times, the opinion column, Nicholas Kristof is the most sanctimonious piece of shit in the business. And of course, the audience for the Times eats it up. But this guy is genuinely like on his moral high horse 100% of the time. Absolutely no self-awareness. Just the worst, most out of touch boomer horse shit you'll ever read comes from this guy. And the comments section for every one of his articles it's like, "Hi, Nicholas, great article. I too am a supremely moral genius, and I too hate my countrymen. I just want to tell you that you're doing the Lord's work." That's every article he's ever written is the same. It's like, "I'm a great hero. There are very, very bad men out there who are doing naughty things." It's like, it's sanctimonious horse shit. I hate it. But here's his newest opinion column. "Musk said no one has died since aid was cut. That isn't true." Okay, so the point of this is, the USAID, the thing that Doge is cutting, it's like we're giving HIV medication to people in Africa. That is, I guess, it's the right of people in Africa for all time into perpetuity to always have America pay for their HIV medication. It makes no sense. I mean, a few episodes ago, I wrote about the not wrote about. I talked about the article written by the former. I think she was a USAID, or no, she was a Peace Corps volunteer. And she was working with like NGOs to build a bunch of shit in Africa, and it was all bullshit and none of it worked. They made like a fake car wash that never operated to take a few pictures with it and show that they were providing alternate economic opportunities for women who were in danger of being sex trafficked. And then the women that they got to pay to help with the car wash that was never used to ever wash a car, they paid them for a few months to get off the streets, but they weren't even prostitutes. They weren't even sex trafficked. They weren't even prostitutes. It was all made up all the way through. And it was a whole article about that. This thing is maybe like 3 episodes ago or something, maybe 2. And it's all like this. Everything is like this. Everything will always be like this. Whenever a large amount of money is paid for anything, there's going to be waste, fraud, and abuse. The way it is, the way it always will be. And as far as taking American money and sending it to Africa, Musk, as a businessman, came in and said, "No, let's just not. Let's just cut as much of that as we possibly can and figure it out later. But we should just cut it," which is what every American's instinct should be when they hear about that. We're sending what to Africa? What did Africa send to us? HIV? Why do we have to send them medicine? Africa gives the world HIV, and the world gives Africa endless HIV medicine forever? Okay, so the whole article is, "As the world's richest men slash American aid for the world's poorest children, they insist all is well. No one has died as a result of a brief pause due to a sanity check on foreign aid funding," Elon Musk said. "No one. That is not true. In South Sudan, one of the world's poorest countries, the efforts by Musk and President Trump are already leading to children to die." Okay, let me ask you a question. All right, let's imagine the scenario. Imagine this. Your brother calls you. He's in another city somewhere, but he's in trouble. He's got no cash. Whether he's a bad seed, his life has gone bad, or maybe he just lost his wallet and can't get the bank on the hold, or whatever. He needs a room for the night, or he's going to be out in the cold overnight. Okay, he needs $80 for a room, let's say. Okay, this is your brother. He calls you and he needs $80 in the room, and you say, yeah, okay, hold on, I'm gonna get to somewhere where you can get a wire transfer or a money order. I'm gonna send you $80 right now, so you'll have a room for the night, warm place to stay. You know, you'll be safe. And then you go to do that, and then suddenly Kristof pops out and he says, "Hey, wait a second. Your brother, he's a healthy young male in a first world country. He'll live for the night if he doesn't get the $80. But that $80, that's 3 months worth of AIDS medicine for one of these damn kids in Africa. Don't send it to your brother, send it to the kid in Africa." That's what these articles are always like. I don't care. Okay, look, I'm going to say I don't care about the kids with HIV in Africa. That's not true. I'm a human being. It's sad. I'd prefer if they didn't have HIV. But there's all kinds of things going on continents where I don't live that I think are sad and I wish were another way. I'm not going to go take more freelance hours to send the money for HIV medicine for these kids. It doesn't make sense. I don't want our tax dollars to go to this. It doesn't make sense. If you are moved by this, by the way, and you want to go volunteer in Africa, I actually think that's good. Like, I'm not that much of a hater. I think if you listen to this podcast, you probably think I just hate and despise everything. I'm real, like, nihilistic. That's not true at all. Okay? Like, I had a comment on a video, I don't know, a last episode or a couple episodes ago, and the guy said it was something about, like, Zelensky didn't kiss Trump's ass, so you're saying he's a pussy or whatever. And I was like, hey, bud, look, here's the, I sent him the link to where you can sign up to volunteer to fight in the Ukrainian army if you want. They're still taking international volunteers, you know? If I had a Ukrainian guy with me and he told me with tears in his eyes about how much he loves his country and how he's going to fight, I would admire that. I wouldn't be like, fuck your country, it's not real, it's all fake. The USSR gifted, Russia gifted Crimea to Ukraine when they were both part of the USSR, and it wouldn't have done that if, that happened in like the 60s. I wouldn't say that. I would keep my mouth shut. I would look him in the eye, I'd shake his hand, and I'd wish him good luck. I'm not a monster. If I see the kids with AIDS in Africa, I'm joking about it because it's so absurd that we give them any money at all. But if you were raising money in your church for that, I wouldn't laugh at you. Now, I might say, hey, could you raise money for this community here? I might say, is there something you could do instead of sending that money there? Could you spend the money wherever you are? But I wouldn't laugh at it. But if you're taking tax money from people, you don't just get to do this. Spend it. Okay. Peter Donde was a 10-year-old infected with HIV from his mother during childbirth, but American aid kept Peter strong even as his parents died from AIDS. Okay, when I read the sentence, I just had that big speech about how I'm not an asshole. And when I read the sentence, I did laugh at that. Okay, I'm going to read this again without laughing. Peter Donde was a 10-year-old infected with HIV. That's not funny. Don't laugh at that. From his mother during childbirth. But American aid kept Peter strong, even as his parents died from AIDS. Okay. All right. A program started by President George W. Bush called PEPFAR saved 26 million lives from AIDS, and one was Peter. Ah, yes. George W. Bush. Now, there was a compassionate president. There was a president everybody loved, who had compassion. And when I think of George W. Bush, I think of lives saved. When someone says George W. Bush to me, I think about all the lives that he saved in his career. His dad, George H.W. Bush, was the former CIA director and was fucking young boys in Texas. And in like their demonic ritual to Moloch in that owl sanctuary that Alex Jones infiltrated that time, they decided that his son would be president, and that's who George W. Bush is. And now I've got to read about how he he saved 26 million lives with AIDS medication. I doubt it. I really, really doubt it. Okay. Okay, let's see. Going on here. In January, Trump and Musk effectively shuttered the U.S. Agency for International Development, perhaps illegally, and the PEPFAR outreach program ended. Orphans were on their own. Without the help of the community health worker, Peter was unable to get his medicine, so he became sick and died in late February. Ah, well, that's a shame. So look, without the money I was stealing from you and taking out of your pocket, this orphan on the other side of the world died, and there was no other way to save him, and there's no money to save anywhere else, and he died because of you. It's your fault because you voted for Trump. When you vote for Trump, you're literally killing children. You're murdering African children. And I hope that you learned your lesson and you will vote for Kamala next time, you piece of shit. That's what this article is. Okay, but I want to get into the comments. I want to get into the nasty, self-serving comments from Nicholas. Okay, so he's commented on his own piece here. Here's the writer of the piece writing his own comment to his own piece. Hi, and thanks for reading my piece. I'm curious about your take on something. I think that President Trump and Elon Musk thought USAID would be an easy target and could be a practice run for raiding something harder, like Medicaid. In reporting this story, I tried to put human faces on the aid cuts and appeal to readers' consciences, but I wonder whether it's more effective to appeal to the public's sense of self-interest. Which arguments do you think are most effective in reaching people and changing minds? So he's saying here, he says, I wrote this story to appeal to the conscience, but I know there are some really, really bad, nasty people out there who wouldn't even like this article. Not you guys who are reading it. I know that we're on the same page. I know that you don't want dead children, but those nasty Republicans, they're not going to listen to this. Should I write about Medicaid? Hey, fuck you. Fuck the kids. Fuck Medicaid. Let's end taxes and raise wages. How does that sound? Oh, right, you're an old man. So you're an old man with a fake job where you write in an air-conditioned office. So you need the young men to be out there building the buildings you work in and working in the fields to get the food that you eat and working in the factories for all the crap. And you need all that to be at slave labor wages. And you need money to be forcibly extracted from them to fund whatever you want. And you're the moral one. You're the good moral one. And you say, oh, I know this moral lecture probably wouldn't reach them because they voted for Trump and they have no conscience, so they don't care about kids like me. But maybe I should make it about something that'll affect them. Hey, how about write about something that affects you? How about you write about something that you need to give up, Nicholas? What do you need to give up? Hey, what kind of subsidies, what kind of taxpayer subsidies went into constructing the building that you work in that should be given up? Hey, if we got rid of those, maybe we could pay for more AIDS medicine. Fuck you, piece of shit. I hate you. I truly hate you. Okay, but there was an even better one, I think. Okay, so here he is. He's replying to some guy, and he says, so someone had messaged about or had commented about faith-based organizations doing this stuff, which again could be fine. I don't know. Not what I'm talking about. So he says, I think you're right that faith-based organizations have more influence on this White House. And I think they are frantically working, mostly behind the scenes, to preserve humanitarian aid. Evangelical organizations like World Vision and Samaritan's Purse do great work in remote areas, and they are huge. World Vision is bigger than CARE and Save the Children put together. Catholic organizations, okay, likewise, Catholic organizations like Catholic Relief Services and Caritas do wonderful work and receive lots of USAID funding. Okay, so this is why I wanted to talk about this one. These faith-based organizations getting USAID funding. These people in this class who write for the New York Times and who write for these outlets, these are the ones always talking about separation of church and state. And then they're talking about the USAID funding for like Catholic Relief Services or something. I mean, it's so gay. It sucks so much. Catholic Relief Services deciding to help the children with HIV. Again, that's actually a wonderful thing. That could be a great thing. It kind of makes sense. It makes sense for the worldview that a lot of Catholic people have. I think it would be very moving to a lot of them to do this. And if they want to donate their money to do that, fine. But it should be their money. As in, you're a Catholic. Your religious beliefs want you to pay for the HIV medicine for some kid in Africa. So you take your money and you give it to Catholic services. You don't come to me and take my taxes to do it, asshole. I need my taxes to go to things that protect my interests. That's what they're for, and that's it. That's all they're for. They're for things that are in the nation's interest, and as a citizen of the nation, my taxes are used for them. That's it. It's really not that complicated. Okay, some other asshole said something. I'll just move on. This reminds me of effective altruism. I wanted to talk about effective altruism. You remember this story from... Oh, I thought this was from longer ago. It's actually only from April of 2024. It's only about a year old. So effective altruism, it was basically like we're all geniuses and we're going to save the world. We're going to spend our money effectively. We're going to make as much money as possible, and we're actually going to change the world. It's all logical. You're a low IQ Catholic, and you just give your money to the Catholic charity to go save some kid. But we're geniuses, and we're going to take the money, and we're going to use it to save the world. And this is how charity should be done. That was effective altruism. It was like a borderline cult in like Silicon Valley, kind of, and in other like upper echelons of wealth. And they got really into AI safety and all that kind of thing. It was like, hey, that money that you were going to donate to your brother, or you were going to donate to a Catholic charity to save the kid with HIV, that's illogical. What you should do is give that money to me. And what I'm going to do is pay for AI research to make sure AI doesn't kill us, because I watched a sci-fi movie when I was 10 and I have autism and I get hyperfixated on things, and I think that Terminator will really happen in real life. And these guys were going strong for a while, but Sam Bankman-Fried was one of their top guys. And we all know what happened with him. He was also just interviewed on Tucker Carlson maybe 3 weeks ago, from prison. So, of course, he was a liar and a fraud. He was stealing money from all these people. And, hey, stealing money is good, because I need as much money as possible to fund my AI safety thing and save the world. And I'm the only one who knows how to spend this money, because I'm a great genius. That was the whole thing with Sam. That was the whole thing with effective altruism. And then what they actually did with the money was they bought themselves a castle. The effective altruist castle is for sale and has become a culture war meme. So this was New York Magazine Intelligencer. It's so the whole skew is that the culture war is very silly around this, and you know, the EA people are bad, but the people who don't like them are also bad because they tend to be conservative. Blah 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 blah. But still, the long and the short of it was that they bought a castle. They took your money to save the world because they're geniuses, and then they bought a castle. So let's get into a paragraph here that I liked. First, it is worth noting that even people within the EA movement thought that the castle was a bad idea. Effective altruism, after all, is all about the efficient use of money, arguing that the most important long-term thing someone can do is to make as much money as possible in order to give it away. Uh-huh. This spirit runs through Kristof. I know it's not exactly what he was saying, but it's very related. Okay, I'll keep reading. But to the leadership of Effective Ventures Foundation, the movement's flagship nonprofit organization, it was a way to more effectively spread all their ideas. Having an immense environment which was more about exploring new ideas than showing off results was just very good for intellectual progress, said Owen Cotton Barrett, one of the EAs who claimed to have been involved in the purchase. Okay, so listen to this. This quote just absolutely kills me. Okay? Having an immersive environment, which was more about exploring new ideas than showing off results, was just very good for intellectual progress. So if I say, hey, I think you need to be taxed to pay for the HIV for the babies in Africa, what they're going to say is like, no, you, the slave, need to be taxed. The money that was going to you to make your life better, to protect you, should go to the babies in Africa because you'll be fine. But me, I need an immersive environment that's about exploring new ideas. And then you say, what does that mean? What kind of environment? And then guys like Kristof and guys like this guy, they'll say, what I need is a $20 million castle. The two extremes of where money should be spent, it's a $20 million castle for me, and it's billions in HIV medicine for people over there. And for white working class men in America, hey, would you shut the fuck up, you piece of shit? The tax dollars are for important things. Like me and my castle.